Hey everybody, it's Becky. Decided to do another video because I've been through a lot in the past few months, and I just wanted to update you and get on a new rant. But just to update everybody, I wasn't successful in staying off of gabapentin. I pretty much crashed and became suicidal. Ended up going to a facility to try to use, natural ways to decrease and stop again, and it didn't work. So I'm back on the gabapentin, and I know I've kindled myself, and I can't think about that right now because at this point, all the stress of that the initial withdrawal put on my body, like it did with the Klonopin withdrawal I had in 2016, I believe I'm in fulminant adrenal exhaustion. And sadly, the medical community does not believe in adrenal fatigue at all. They only believe in extremes, such as Addison's and Cushing's. They don't believe that the adrenals can get weaker and weaker and eventually get to the extreme, and to hopefully try to stop the adrenals from getting to that extreme before it gets there. There's no ICD-10 code out there for adrenal fatigue. There's no real known medical therapies for adrenal fatigue, only natural therapies. So honestly, there's no way for the pharmaceutical industry to profit on this diagnosis, but it makes sense. If you think about diabetes, you can have diabetes, of course, but you can also have metabolic syndrome or prediabetes. That's almost diabetes. So why can't some of us end up having almost adrenal failure and try to offset it before it gets to that point? It just makes me upset that the medical community doesn't even think about that. Now, I know there are providers out there that are taking it on and saying, yes, they believe it is a condition, but places like the AMA and other than that, they just don't believe in it. They think all the symptoms that we are having that constitute adrenal fatigue are like multiple different systemic conditions, of course, to include a mental health one. There's so much more research that needs to be done to address this because there's so many people affected by it, and of course, insurance doesn't cover it all either. So we're left out here to scramble on our own and heal ourselves, and it's hard. So what are my current symptoms? My current symptoms are dizziness with standing. I get dehydrated very easily, so I am drinking upwards of 2 to 3 liters of water with some Himalayan sea salt, a little bit of tart cherry, and some Pedialyte in it to try to keep me from getting dehydrated. Of course, as we know, adrenals do secrete aldosterone, and when your adrenals are fatigued or the cortisol is low, aldosterone tends to follow, and aldosterone is your salt-water balance. And if you have low aldosterone, you need to keep up with your fluids or you'll dehydrate, especially with enough salt, the right kind of salt. Of course, if you have high blood pressure, you need to watch that too. I have reactive hypoglycemia. That's another thing that low functioning adrenals can cause. When your cortisol, one of the functions of cortisol is to regulate glycogen in your liver and for release. in cases of times when you're not able to eat, you have stored glycogen. So when your cortisol is low, you don't have that. So your body's dependent on what you eat to keep your sugar up, and you're constantly having to eat. Of course, healthy foods, and I won't get into what foods. There's a lot of information out there on good sources on what needs to be eaten during adrenal fatigue, but I'm eating every 2 to 3 hours, and it's exhausting. And another symptom is GI. When your cortisol is low, the next system, which is your NEM system, I can't say the word right now, neuroendometabolic system, takes over, which is basically epinephrine or adrenaline and norepinephrine. And so when your cortisol is low, adrenaline takes over, and when you are low in sugar, of course, your body's stress response takes over, and adrenaline is released, and it can't get shut off like in a typical situation. It takes hours to shut off, and that's quite frightening, because adrenaline release that can't be shut off. Imagine having a gun held to your head, or imagine a bear chasing after you, and that feeling that you just can't shut off for hours. That I still have too, but I'm starting to combat it a little bit with the constant eating and constant drinking. I have extreme fatigue. Now, before all this happened, I was doing boot camp 6 days a week. I was 125 pounds. Now I'm 108 pounds. I can barely walk around the block without feeling that adrenaline start to peak up, because I get so fatigued so easily. So I'm not doing a lot, and actually I'm out of work again, which is frustrating. And I'm sure many of you can empathize or know what I'm feeling, because I'm sure many of you are going through this similar. My hair is falling out in droves. That's another symptom. Of course, again, I can't gain weight. My GI system is off. And all this has to do with your adrenal. It makes sense. If anybody's interested there's so many good articles out there that are reputable, that just, if you're having similar symptoms, it just makes sense. So why isn't the medical community recognizing it? I don't know. Hopefully it's not because there's no profit in it for the insurance companies or the pharmaceutical companies, because if that's the way it is, that's sad, that's sick, and that's pathetic, actually. There's people out there suffering, and there might be ways to really help people out there, people who can't afford naturopathic doctors. It's incredible how the system is going. And me, as you all probably know by previous videos, I'm a provider, and seeing things like this, seeing people suffer and no way to help because they can't afford to get the help they need, it makes me sick, because I care about people. So I'm going to get off my soapbox for now. So my basic rant is, yes, I'm in adrenal fatigue. I believe in adrenal fatigue. How am I going to repair myself? It's time. Staying away from stress, eating right, drinking right, and a lot of rest. I'm hoping to get back to work one day. I don't know if it needs to be in healthcare anymore, because healthcare is becoming terrible. And I won't go on about that, but it's just becoming terrible. And I hate to see how healthcare is doing to people these days. So if you have any questions, concerns, comment on the bottom. Please be nice. I'm not feeling well. I'm hoping I'll be better in the future. Pray for me. My only resource right now is the good Lord. He's getting me through. Doing a lot of meditation, breathing exercises, and just resting. You know, our life is so full of stress. It's time that we are able to rest. And in society today, it's hard to do. Love you all. Pray for me. I pray for you. God bless.